Welcome, everyone, to the Saturday Morning Sports Betting Show. I'm your host, John Ryan. I'm here with my co-host, Jesse Schule, who still lives in Thailand, I might add. And we are joined by a very special guest, one of the most knowledgeable college basketball people I know on the planet, Eric Haslam. He is from Wisconsin. I'm in Princeton, New Jersey. So I think we have it all covered around the world. And Jesse actually knows what the scores are of some of the games because he's already into Sunday. So that's why he's so damn good. But Eric, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on board. And I'm wondering, ever since Jesse has been moved over to Thailand, which has been about 5 months now, you look like you have a glow. And is that because you're healthier, because you're eating the local food, I guess Thai food?
Intermittent fasting and heavy duty weightlifting.
Not so Thai food. No difference between Thailand or Princeton or Wisconsin. If we do the same thing, we could glow too.
I think so.
He looks like he has a little bit more of a tan than me. It's pretty close, but no, that's a joke. I'm actually gone into full polar bear mode already, and we're not even at Christmas yet. It's going to get much worse. I'm going to be even paler in January or February. So imagine that. It's going to get ugly.
Well, Wisconsin is known for their winters. I mean, it would be like the Caribbean compared to Buffalo, though. But
I always have to go through that first, that one day in May where I get too much sun, and then I go straight from white to red, and then I kind of back off into some sort of eggshell white for much of the summer. So, but I'm just looking like a polar bear right now.
Well, I have better lighting than Jesse too. I'm actually just as dark as him. Just to say that. I used to be a lifeguard. When I lifeguard, I would get pretty dark because when you're young, you use that Hawaiian tropic stuff, that red label that had absolutely zero protection. It was like putting yourself in a frying pan. And I never had sunburn in my life. So fortunately, I don't have to worry about, and have not had to worry about anything with the skin or that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I have that Dutch background. So if you're a little bit Dutch, that you're usually screwed. The Dutch, German, English background, I got nothing going for me when it comes to that stuff. Well, Norwegian, all that. I
imagine millions of years ago they were cave dwellers, so that makes sense, I guess, right?
Well, I'm kind of a cave dweller myself, so I'm taking after my ancestors.
Well, we're going to start here with this little Fenway Bowl angle I have here for those that want to bet this game in the next 12 minutes. And I don't know why that isn't being – oh, no, it is spelled right. That's just the way it looks at me. But we're going to bet under the posted total in this game, even though it is under 40 points, with one of the teams coming off at least one loss. And that team has won 50 to 60% of their games on the season, and the total is less than 42.5 points. 13-3 under, 81% last 5 seasons. I would highly recommend doing it. The way I'm going to be playing it is 50% of my normal betting amount pre-flop, and then look for a faster than normal start in this game. It'll be interesting to see how these two teams, behave themselves because they're going to be both on the same side of the field, Jesse. And, and that I know if we were both on the same side of the field, there would have to be some, occasional confrontations, and harassment. But anyway, I like the under in this game. And then one other thing before we get to college basketball, because you're all here to listen to Eric, is the one that I put out Thursday night, 49ers Seahawks. And in that video, I did say the subset is 15-0, 2 pushes the last 10 seasons. What you want to do is write this down and follow it. And when it comes up as another qualifying play, you play it. The three of us, we don't bet mascots or teams. We bet numbers. And a lot of times, Jesse's numbers are going to be more on the fundamental side. But I emphasize that just because this is 15-0 does not mean it is a lock. And I encourage you, if you're a new bettor, whenever you hear somebody say they're hitting 80% winners or they're hitting, whatever ridiculous number, that you exercise some caution, maybe do some research and make sure it is the right number. This is 15-1 now. It could be 15-3. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. But be careful with these angles because even though this has been sensational, not one losing season in 20 years, it's made money. So that's the point. Is you grind it out. It doesn't matter if this one lost because you have the faith that it's going to make money over the course of the season. So now that I put everybody to sleep with my collegiate lecture from the Princeton University, let's get into the basketball. And I don't know about you, Eric, but this is like the day where my blood starts really cooking.
We're kind of in between the whole football's coming to an end and people are looking for something to do. Usually when you get into early January, people start making that shift over to college basketball. It's a good day to do it because there are a lot of marquee matchups today. So this is kind of the kickoff for the people who are kind of the high level or moderately casual college basketball fans out there.
And I encourage people, and I'll try to put some screenshots up here last minute, is go to HaslamMetrics.com now. And the first game is going to be UConn-Butler. And you'll be able to see right on his front page all the analytics that he has for this game. And you can follow along with the work that he does. And I'm telling you, you're gonna be impressed right now. I'm putting a lot of pressure on Eric, but he's good at handling pressure because he's a Wisconsin Badger. You can tell by the colored shirt, I think.
That's right. Yep. I got it going.
Let's get right to it, Eric. This is a big game. UConn, number one in the country, on the road against Butler. That arena is going to be rocking tonight. Of course, they're going to look for the upset. Tell us where you think our money should go in this matchup.
Well, sometimes I'm going to say this ahead of time. The analytics are not the be all end all, the numbers that you're going to have to follow. I think I always tell people about analytics. It's like evidence at a crime scene. It's based on past performance. So you want to look at the analytics as a guide. You don't want to look at them and say, well, I'm going to follow them and throw all my money on them, because there are times, and I think of this game, this UConn-Butler game might be a situation where you may want to go against what the analytics are saying. Now, in this situation, Vegas has UConn by 9. The analytics have UConn by 11. It makes a lot of sense because UConn has been so dominant early on this season. They're number 1 in offensive efficiency, number 7 in defensive efficiency. To say that the away from home element has not been a problem for UConn would be an understatement. Their neutral court games. There was the Phil Knight Invitational where they beat Oregon on a neutral court by 24. They beat Alabama by 15, Iowa State by 18. And then they finally have their true road game and they go down to Gainesville and they bury Florida by 21. So going on the road so far has not been a problem for the Huskies. But, you keep in mind with Butler here, they're 6-0 at home this year. They've had positive game efficiency ratings in 5 of those games. That means that they've exceeded the analytical expectation based on their current placement. They beat number 60 Kansas State. They beat number 45 Yale. Both games they won by double digits. Are they defensively good enough to stop UConn? That's going to be really tough. UConn has been really great on the offensive end of the court this year, number 1 in offensive efficiency. Butler's only 61 on the defensive end. UConn's going to get plenty of second chances. They have to minimize that. But I think back to a couple of years ago where Butler was right around the same spot in that ranked in like the 30 or 40 range or something like that about 2 or 3 seasons ago. And that year they had a lot of nice home victories. One of them was over Villanova, I remember. This might be one of those situations where I can understand why Vegas would kind of cut back from the raw analytics saying 11. They kind of hedge it a little bit, move it back to 9. I might be inclined to go even a little bit more than that. I don't know if UConn is 9 points better than Butler today. It just seems to me like this gravy train for UConn, which was kind of unexpected, at some point has to come to an end. Their closest game so far this season was a 10-point win over Oklahoma State. The average margin of victory is 26.5 points. They're beating the analytical expectation in 5 of their last 6 games. At some point, something's got to give. You got to have a stinker in here somewhere. Maybe this is it. You're going on the road to play a team that's going to be really fired up like Butler.
It seems like a matchup of the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets, and the Jets are at home, and they're going to have everything go right to be competitive.
Yeah,
that's how it matches up. The one thing with Butler is, what are they on your site? 250th in pace of play, so they play slow to begin with, but not quite as slow as UConn does. And I'm just wondering whether Butler's going to have to change their style of play to play faster if they want to try to win this game.
Well,
Does that
UConn
make
is
sense to you?
UConn is 152 in pace, and Butler is 244. So Butler is the slower team of the two. UConn can play at any pace for the most part. They're kind of in between. I don't think they're going to have to change their pace too much. That may work to their benefit if you're talking about an 11-point or a 9-point spread in that range. Slowing things down might work to their benefit, especially if that home crowd gives them an early lead. They're going to be able to slow things down, play their pace more. UConn's going to have to kind of acclimate to Butler's pace, and that might work in the Bulldogs' favor as well.
Anything to add, Jesse? I'm kind of leaning to
interesting to hear you guys talk about it, but I think the most interesting point he made is, I think, Eric, you said your numbers have it 11. Vegas is hedging a bit, pulling it back to 9. I can see why. I mean, home dogs look pretty attractive based on history, what we know about college basketball, but does that really leave us any value? It seems like the value gets sucked up there. As much as Butler might have the potential to cause some problems for them, you're not really getting much betting value at the current line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I like it. Let's move on to another great matchup here. And I just love these totals, guys, where it's 115.5 points, and your knee-jerk reaction is to take the over. But it involves the Virginia Cavaliers hosting the Houston Cougars. And, the first team to 55 actually might be the winner of this game, based on my humble opinion. Eric, where do you think we should put our money?
Well, in this one, it's, the analytics always, in these types of games, they probably go a little bit low. Vegas really kind of pulls them back. Even my analytics have adjustments for these extreme situations where you have two really slow teams. We saw it a few years ago when Virginia played Purdue. And what I end up doing is, based on the number of standard deviations away from the norm, you kind of try to pull it back in the middle. And even now, I'm probably not pulling it back as much as Vegas is. I saw last night the over-under was 113, and you said something like 115.5. So it may have already shifted 2.5 points. The raw analytics have it at 107.5. Now that's really tough. That's really tough to hit that. But I mean, when you look at this is what I refer to as a 6 tortoise special. If you look at the game preview on HaslamMetrics.com, we have little icons when you look at the game preview, and it shows either the hares or the rabbits or the tortoises. And in this case, the more tortoises you see, the slower the pace. You've got 3 on one side, 3 on the other. So this is the 6 tortoise special. Houston is number 348 in pace. Virginia is number 362 in pace. And on top of that, you're dealing with a Houston team that, is not only a slowdown team, but just really great in defensive efficiency. They're number 1 in the country there. They're number 1 in defensive field goal percentage, number 3 in defensive 3-point percentage, number 4 in defensive mid-range percentage. They will make life miserable for opposing shooters. Virginia is not perimeter focused on offense. I think they're more likely to take things inside in this. And then, of course, you think of Virginia. Virginia, you think defense when you hear about Virginia, but in fact, their offense is actually better this year. They're 29th in offensive efficiency, 37th in defensive efficiency. They get to the foul line really well. They're number 1 in the country at that. That usually spells foul trouble for a lot of teams, but Houston does go 9 or 10 guys deep. On top of that, Houston does capitalize quickly on scoring off of steals. They're number 4 in the country. They're going to try to acquire those quick steals, scoring on the other end. It's an interesting give and take between the two here, because you have a team that likes to get to the foul line like Virginia. You have Houston, who has to be aggressive to acquire those steals. That can work either way. And, if Houston gets a little bit too sloppy, they get in foul trouble. Very interesting situation here. Interesting note about Virginia, I just want to mention, they've had negative efficiency ratings in 4 out of 5 home contests this year. That means that regardless of if they're winning or losing, there's a certain expectation for them. They have not met that expectation in 4 out of 5 games. They also haven't played a game in 11 days. And that's a question of, I don't know, and maybe that's a question I throw to you guys. What are your opinions on a team that has not played in 11 days? Is that good for Virginia, or is that bad for Virginia, for the Cavaliers?
I'll let you take that one first, Jesse, because I got to think about that. If they underperformed 4 out of 5 games and they've had 11 days off, you would think initially they would be fixing the problems, right? Especially a team as good as Virginia. But what do you think?
Well, and then there's the question: 11 days off for Virginia. Is it the same as 11 days off for Alabama, UCLA, or one of these run and gun teams that rely so heavily on offense and offensive efficiency, whereas Virginia is slower paced, more focused on defense? Perhaps are they really going to lose anything there? I mean, they're going to be well rested. They should have plenty of energy. I'm not sure that it would have any impact on Virginia, but I guess it explains why Houston comes in as the road favorite here. When you'd think that all the numbers should favor the home team, and maybe that's the reason.
I can tell you this: I think the over is probably not the right bet, because right now we have 75% of the tickets are on the over, but only 35% of the money. To me, that means the sharps are probably on the under. And like I said, your knee-jerk reaction is to bet the over. Whenever you see a total under 120, you think, well, there's no way they can't go over that, because it just seems so low. Yeah. But I think this game plays under.
I always worry about these types of situations, because you have two teams and you're like, I'm good. You got to think both of these teams are slow down, slow tempo type of teams. Is one going to try to outthink the other and say, I'm going to, all of a sudden speed up my game to kind of throw an unexpected element into it? So I mean, in that situation, I know I thought back to that game a few years ago with Purdue and Virginia. At that time, I think the over hit, and it was still a really low number. I think even our analytical projection had that game in the 40s. At the time, it might have been 50-48 or something like that. So, I mean, the over-under was actually under 100. Now, in this situation, we have it at roughly 107.5, 108. The other thing I kind of wanted to mention as well is that I think as of last night, Houston was a 2.5-point favorite. Our analytics have Houston as a 6.5-point favorite right now. I'd be more inclined to probably go that route and take Houston to cover, as opposed to looking at that over-under, which can probably go either way. It's really unexpected. That makes me uneasy. These weird games with the slow pace, you don't know what's going to happen. I'd be more inclined to go Houston. Houston needs this win. Houston dropped a game against Alabama last weekend. I think they need to bounce back on this one. I would be more inclined to go with Houston to cover.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And I was thinking too, as Jesse knows, I love in-game betting. So this is probably a total that if you do like the over or the under, you probably don't need to bet it pre-flop. Let the game come to you. And if the team starts out with a faster than normal pace and the total goes up to 125, then nail the under. If it goes down to 105, consider the over. I don't think there's any reason in the world to bet it at either way at 115.5. My humble opinion. Let's see the third game. And Jesse was just talking about these guys. UCLA Bruins against Kentucky. And another marquee matchup on the Saturday card. And I'll just turn it over to you, Eric, and you can tell us where the bet may be.
So this is another one that has a little bit of a difference in that I have UCLA as an 8-point favorite in this one. And I think one of the concerns I have and Vegas has it at 2.5. I have UCLA by 8. And one of my concerns I think that I have with the UCLA is, was there a little bit too much of an emphasis placed analytically on that the Maryland game? And the Maryland game, a lot of people will ask me about those types of games, and they'll say was UCLA just that good, or was Maryland just that bad? Well, I looked at that game, and Maryland was really, 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 really bad. They had tons of turnovers. They played poor defense. But on the flip side, UCLA has won 6 straight. And a little interesting tidbit about Kentucky as well. The closer that UK is to a true road game, the worse they have performed this year. The top 6 performances have been at home in Rupp Arena. The next 2 ranked games for them were in neutral sites, and their worst performance was that true road game at Gonzaga. So they have yet to record a positive game rating away from Rupp Arena, although the sample size is only 3. So in this situation, I'm probably going to lay off this one. I don't know. I'll have to look at it a little bit more. I haven't watched the line today. I just saw it last night. It was UCLA by 2.5. Quite a big difference between that and the analytics, which had UCLA by 8.
Yeah, that's I agree with the breakdown 100%. I really do. Jess, you have anything to add to this game?
Yeah, no, I'm in full agreement, and I find it interesting that so often I agree with the numbers, guys, and I come to the same conclusion, but I use very different methods. But from where I'm standing, UCLA looks like they should be the favorite. They clearly look like the better team. Neutral site game at MSG doesn't seem to favor Kentucky at all. And I think Kentucky just, they have that blue blood reputation. They're always a little bit highly rated. And yeah, I like UCLA here.
And lastly, what I like most about it is UCLA is ranked 16th in the nation. Kentucky's 13th. Yet, in a neutral court, UCLA is the favorite. Market's telling you something, and it's telling you that UCLA is the better team.
That's
so
right.
Anyway, that's one.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing of the AP rankings, it's always kind of when you look at them, like the analytics that I'm working with, you're dealing with those efficiency margins. You're dealing with true performance, which means you can have good losses. You can have bad wins. A lot of the rankings that you see, as far as the rankings that you see on the site, the AP rankings, are largely dependent not just on performance efficiency margins, but also on wins and losses. So you're looking at resume. That doesn't necessarily mean you can have a team that goes, I've always said that if a really extreme example, but if you were the 11th best team in the country and you scheduled the best 10 and you lost all 10 by 1 point in overtime every game, you'd be 0-10. Does that mean you're a bad team? Absolutely not. You played the top 10 teams in the country. You lost by 1 point every single time. That's the extreme example I always like to make. That's the difference between the analytics and what the voters for the AP poll are doing, which are basing things largely on wins and losses.
Oh, I love it. It reminds me of Louisville, but Louisville, I think, is just a bad team if my analytics are right. But
I test analytics, everything. Louisville is bad. I mean, the fact that they show up, my projections on my site are all based on the ranking. The fact that you have to scroll to the very bottom line to see the Louisville game today speaks volumes about how horrible they've been. They're actually favored to win that game today because they're playing such a bad team. They're playing Florida A&M, and they're hosting them too. So I have them winning that one by only 7. That's a crime for an ACC team to be favored by 7 over a team like Florida A&M, who's 358th in the country.
I think the football team scores more than the basketball team.
Yeah, they're bad.
Number 6, Tennessee Volunteers on the road at number 9, Arizona. This is taking place at the McHale Center in Tucson, Arizona, so it is a true road game for Tennessee. Arizona favored by 3.5. Again, the higher-ranked team, number 9, Arizona, is favored over the supposed better team in Tennessee. And most of that's probably home court advantage. Tennessee is coming off an amazing 56-53 win, but didn't cover the spread. They shot 29% from the field, allowed 33% in that game. I would think they do a little bit better shooting in this game. They're just too talented. Arizona, though, shot 57% against Texas A&M Community College in their 99-61 win, allowed 31% shooting. It seems to me, Eric and Jesse, that the regression is that Arizona is due to regress downward a little bit, and Tennessee is going to shoot a lot better from the field. So I guess I initially would lean Tennessee, but I'm more interested to hear what Eric has to say.
No, the analytics agree with you. This is a situation where, we've talked about these other games where I went even further than what the spread is. In this situation, I saw Arizona by 3.5 last night. We actually have it as a pick 'em. It's that close. And, the injuries will come into play. I don't know the status. I haven't been able to look at it closely, but I know that Josiah Jordan-James had an ankle injury. He's day-to-day. He has struggled to get healthy this season, has only played 5 games. Having him today would be especially helpful, especially from a shooting standpoint. This is where Tennessee has kind of really struggled this year. Santiago Vescovi, he has been struggling. He has missed time with a left shoulder injury. He's shooting just 29% from three-point range. There's a lot of reasons I like Tennessee in this one because I think Tennessee is going to I think things are going to kind of slide back to the norm from a shooting standpoint. On top of that, that defense of Tennessee is suffocating. They are far and away the number 1 team in defensive three-point percentage. That means the average D1 team will shoot 20.6% against Tennessee. And, I look at that and let's say, why is that a difference? They actually, the opposition gets off plenty of threes against Tennessee, but they just can't make any of them. The reason for that, I believe, and I wish I could prove this, but I have a suspicion, is lots of panic threes late in the shot clock. That's always something with my analytics that I wish I could track, is get the shot clock information, because I would add a whole new category for late shot clock prayers, so to speak. And I think that's kind of what's going on with Tennessee. They play such suffocating defense that teams late in the shot clock are still out beyond the 3-point line, and then they end up chucking a low percentage shot late in the shot clock. And I think that's part of the reason why Tennessee has been so good. With Arizona, they got off to a very fast start. First 5 games, all with positive game efficiency ratings. They followed that up with 3 negatives, including the 15-point loss at Utah. Now they've had 2 positives in a row again, so they're a little bit of a streaky team. I would probably lean Tennessee in this game, the over-under as well. I'd probably lean the under, because I just, 148.5 was what I saw. It may have come down today. I haven't looked at it. But, one of these teams is Tennessee. And that's the thing. I'm like, scoring, getting close to 150 with Tennessee playing that game, that's tough to do. I would probably lean under on that one.
And again, use the in-game betting. If you get a total, it's above 150 based on what Eric just said. That seems to be a really, really good betting opportunity. Jesse, what do you have any thoughts on this game?
I do. I have stronger thoughts on this game than any of the previous games we mentioned. And I mentioned previously that it's amazing that I come to the same conclusions as the numbers guys, even though I'm not really a numbers guy. But I'm going to have to agree to disagree on this one. I'm looking at the total, and I am looking over, and here are the reasons for it. Tennessee hasn't played on the road all year, so all their defensive numbers are based on either neutral site or home games. So what do? I look at last year's numbers, and I understand with the player turnover, not the same team, but same program, similarities. Tennessee was the best defensive team in the SEC last year. They only allowed about 60 points per game. If you look at their road record, though, they lost their first 3 road games in conference play, 3 of their first 4 road games overall. I believe they gave up like 79 points to LSU, 107 to Kentucky, and 73 to another SEC team. I can't pull this off the top of my head, but they gave up an average of over 80 points a game in their first 3 conference road games. And this
Alabama.
is Kentucky.
Was it Alabama?
Yeah, it was Alabama. Yeah. And this is Tennessee's first true road game, and it's against one of the scariest offensive teams in the country, a team that is so efficient, can shoot the lights out. They're at home. And last year's total was 153. So now the total's clawed back from that 153. Well, where did it land last year? It landed right on 150, and we got it just below 150, and that has me leaning towards the over.
I like the breakdown, Jesse. See, you are talented in college basketball.
I got a few tricks up my sleeve.
I'm going to bring on our football expert and one of my good friends, too, Jordan Capozzi, ESPN Syracuse executive producer. He puts up with me every Friday at 1:30 with my slides and all that other good stuff I send over. But welcome to the show, Jordan.
Expert is a lot. I appreciate it. Expert is a whole lot. I just look at stuff and pretend I know when it's a sketchy line and hop on it. But I appreciate the intro, John, and good to see y'all.
Well, like Jesse's reminded me, calling him, an expert or a guru is opinionated. Not everybody would agree with, my statement that Jesse is he eats well, he works out well, and he's very, very healthy. Not everybody would agree with that.
Well,
and that's what
Jordan definitely doesn't agree.
I see Mr. Perfect hitting the bench every time he gets a lock hit. So
did you see me getting one? Did you see me getting one up on George Kittle there?
I don't know if I did. I saw 11-0 last on with the McCaffrey pick.
You can't jump that high.
No, I did the NFL Combine bench press, and I listed the scores of all the guys, and I bested George Kittle by 1.
The 225 bench press?
Yeah. You didn't see that?
Holy mackerel,
I
man.
lied. I did see that. I forgot the name. So now I have to ask because you brought it up. That's legit? That's legit?
You got what? You guys question if it's legit?
But did you beat him? Did you beat him running the 40 though? That's what I want to know.
Hell no.
Can we post a video of that?
No.
How many reps did you do?
There is videos of me wearing a yellow tight suit, and I'm just kind of spilling out of it, right? So I don't exactly look like a physical specimen, but bench press is kind of a thing of mine.
Well, I always, being a swimmer, I'm pretty lanky. So I always gave the excuse that, guys with short arms, Jesse, have an advantage on bench press.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm a volleyball player, so we got all the sports covered here too. We're not just covering the entire planet. We got every sport covered.
So how many reps did you do? 225.
19.
Holy moly! And that might be like a Guinness Book
I'm chasing Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's score is 22, and Derrick Henry's obviously a beast. So if I could get to the point where I could get to 22 and tie Derrick Henry, I'd pound my chest a little bit harder even still.
Yeah, what you ought to do is learn how to do long snapping. and you'd be playing on Sundays.
I'm 46 years old. I can barely walk, let alone play football.
What's the most you ever benched?
To be honest, I don't even know. I mean, I don't do it seriously enough to keep track. When I've done it a couple times, just trying to do the NFL Combine scores and do a YouTube video, and 19 was definitely my best score so far. I think I did really 17 good. A couple years ago, and I was happy with 17. I mean, your average NFL running back is in between 10 and 15 or something.
I'm not sure I could get the 225 on the bar to actually start doing the bench press. Like, I'd give up there. I'd call it quits and go grab a Frosty or something.
Yeah, I'd be
one lucky thing about being an old guy is that the strength that is required for lifting weights in your 40s and even early 50s, I don't think you lose all these other things, but I don't think you lose raw strength until you're like late 50s, early 60s. So you can actually you can still lift weights well into your 50s, I believe.
Mm. Wow. As you clearly demonstrate.
Thanks, John.
Most I ever did was 318. And it was being a swimmer, that it was a summer that I just trained. And I went back to college, and I swam at a pretty high level. And I had changed so much it blew the coach's mind. And then I put up the 318. We were 44-pound plates, 3 on each side, Jesse. And that's just at the point where the bar starts to bend just a little bit, so it makes you feel.
Oh, that's when you know. Yeah, that's when you're really flexing on everyone. When the bar looks like it's about to break. Yep.
If I had to guess, I would
probably feel macho, man.
If I had to guess, I'd probably put myself in the 400 range for
I'm sure you could do 425, 450 if you're doing 20 reps.
I don't think I could do that much, but yeah.
That's impressive. Man alive. I mean, people ought to buy your picks just because you did that.
I think so. I mean, absolutely.
The power picks.
Yeah. All right. Back to basketball here. We did digress just a little bit. Not as bad as Tony Finn does, but a little bit. Kansas, Indiana. Now, when I looked at this line, Eric, Kansas at -5.5, I thought, man alive, that's a gift. And then I started looking at Indiana, and I thought, well, maybe it is not a gift, but I'm going to start you off with this little system I have here supporting Kansas, and then you can take it and tell me that I should not do that or whether maybe I should. But it's 85%, 23-3 against the spread the last 5 seasons. We're going to bet against the road team. That is a dog, including Pick'em, after allowing 45 or more points in the first half of the last game, and is facing a host that has won their last 3 games by 15 or more points in each one. That is 85% telling me to bet Kansas. So do I need to walk away from the side of the cliff, Eric?
No, the analytics are agreeing with you. I don't know where it is today. Last night, Vegas was Kansas by 5.5. Kansas by 7 is what the analytics have. It's going to be kind of interesting to see if Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to be ready to go. It sounds like he might be able to play. The momentum and home court advantage goes in favor of Kansas here. They've had 3 straight games, with game efficiency ratings of plus 20 or more. They've won those 3 games by an average margin of 28.7 points, Texas Southern, Seton Hall, and Missouri. So they're not exactly pushovers. Missouri was kind of exposed a little bit as a fraud last weekend. Seton Hall is a decent team. Texas Southern, I'm not counting. But, that's working in Kansas's favor. They have solid conversion rates, shooting-wise, per the usual. They're 14th in the country in field goal percentage, 17th from behind the arc, 27th up close to the rim. So they really they can score a number of ways against you. With Indiana, they're heading a little bit of an opposite direction. They've lost 2 of 3. They had a loss at Rutgers, then they lost a neutral court versus Arizona. Both losses, they scored negatively on my scale. They will obviously have to lean on Trace Jackson Davis in this game, along with Race Thompson. Jackson Davis is averaging 17, 8, and 3. IU does have the advantage over Kansas inside in both near proximity field goal percentage and second chance conversion percentage, which tracks how well they get offensive rebounds and convert them into points. Kansas does not have the biggest front court you've ever seen, so they may cook up something special to deal with Jackson Davis here, but the analytics lean Kansas in this one. I don't know if the line has changed. I would suspect it might have, but last night it was 5.5 in favor of Kansas.
Well, PointsBet Illinois has just moved while you were talking to 4.5. Everybody else seems to be 5.5.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting there that just Illinois, neither team is really from that area, but that's the line that you could get right now at PointsBet. Interesting. Anybody else want to toss in any more tidbits on this matchup? Okay. The next game we are going to talk about is a good one. It's Alabama 9-1 facing Gonzaga. And I must say, and this is anal, but I must say it. When Eric said Gonzaga, I learned last year that is the correct pronunciation.
Yes, I learned that early. Yeah, Gonzaga. It's always Gonzaga. Actually, though, I think it's Gonzaga is usually, but so this was a cardinal mistake of mine when I started doing this kind of stuff about 5 years ago. It was really just natural to me to say Gonzaga. And then I had Gonzaga fans coming up to me and saying, you're saying it wrong. And I got it that so many times that got in my head that I don't even think about it anymore. Now it's just Gonzaga. So I can't even say it. Just saying Gonzaga seems so strange to me now, but that's what I used to do.
So is the mascot the Zags?
No, that's the Bulldogs, but they call them the Zags.
But is it Zags or Zags?
I assume it's Zags. I don't know.
This is important to know. I mean, I should be writing.
This is where you just kind of cut kind of hedge your, like, you say Zags or Zogs, or well, it's not Zogs, so it has to be Zags, right?
Yeah, I would think it sounds a lot better.
Yeah,
Zogs. I mean, it almost sounds like you have COVID or something.
Right.
Yeah, I made Jesse laugh. Every show, I make it a point to make him laugh at least once at my stupidity. Alabama is a 1.5-point favorite on the road at Gonzaga. And it's hard to get used to a Gonzaga team that, is not the perennial steamroller that they were in previous years, but they're still pretty damn good. Nate Oates has his Crimson Tide playing at a very, very high level. I initially lean here to Alabama, even though it's a -1.5 in a difficult venue. I just think they have more top-to-bottom talent than the Zags do. But let's hear what Eric has to say about this one.
Yeah, I'll talk quickly on this one. There isn't much of a change between Vegas and my analytics in this one. I have Alabama by 2. The over/under I saw last night for Vegas was right about 159.5. I have 155.5. Obviously, the Namari Burnett injury is going to probably have some sort of factor for Alabama. He had wrist surgery. He is out. He was averaging 19 minutes a game, averages 8 and 2. Not much there, but he was more of a defensive influence. Based on past years, you would probably expect a track meet here. The teams did score 173 last year. But the thing that's changed a little bit this year is that Gonzaga is just number 131 in game pace. Alabama's still up there. They're at number 17. But Gonzaga has really backed off their game pace this year, down to 131. Another reason I don't really like to touch this one is that these two teams, we have a metric out there that's called consistency. Both of these teams are rated as very inconsistent based on their metrics. In those situations, I don't trust them to do what they're supposed to do. So in this situation, I'm probably going to lay off this game completely. But if you were looking at it, Vegas versus the analytics, Vegas, Alabama 1.5, the analytics, Alabama by 2. That's pretty close. But like you said, there's about a 4-point difference between the over-under. The analytics would suggest taking the under in this game, even though, like I said, the teams did score 173 last year. This is not the same Gonzaga team that we saw with the up-tempo pace that we saw last year. They're a little bit slower. Will they amp things up in this game against Alabama? Hard to say, but at this point, based on past precedent, you'd want to take the under.
Yeah, I like the under too. Anybody else have anything on this one?
I do have a client play on Alabama here. Just the location of the game. Alabama's kind of. Alabama's proven plenty to us so far with their schedule, and I think they've beat 2 number 1 ranked teams already. Gonzaga has kind of been exposed as not as good as they were in previous seasons, but I'm not sure if they've been exposed quite to the degree that we're going to see. I really don't think this is a top 10 team anymore. In fact, they were really good for a couple years, but for a whole decade before that, I remember one of my first jobs, they asked me to write an article about the most overrated team in the country. And I picked Gonzaga because, a decade ago, they used to play in the WCC. They would go undefeated for the year. They wouldn't play a single ranked team. Their schedule was trash, and they'd be ranked like top 3 in the country. And they'd always lose in the Sweet 16 or whatever. Now they went over the hump. They had their little run, but now they don't have the same talent they had a year or two ago. And Alabama looks like the real deal. The game's in the state of Alabama. Alabama beat them last year in Seattle. Short line, I'll go with Alabama.
Yeah, what he's saying about Gonzaga is absolutely right. You lose Chet Holmgren up front, so now Drew Timme has to do everything himself in the paint. The bigger loss, I think, is that going from Andrew Nembhard to Nolan Hickman was a huge drop-off. That was one of the biggest things about Gonzaga that's been exposed this year. The thing about Alabama, though, is me and a bunch of buddies, we always joke and we say, don't trust Marquette, never trust Marquette. Just when you think Marquette's got it going, never trust Marquette. I'm kind of adopting the don't trust Alabama. And Alabama fans may disagree with me on this one, and I've gotten a lot of hell from Alabama fans on Twitter. But, who beats Gonzaga and then loses to Georgia? That's exactly what Alabama did last year. And that's one of the things that kind of sticks in my head. Yes, it is a different team. Yes, this Alabama team really did decline, especially defensively, as the season went along last year. Yes, they did decline, shooting the 3-point. They rely heavily on the 3-point shot. And they just kept chucking and nothing worked for them. They seem to have turned that around this year with the additions of Brandon Miller and Mark Sears. Those two have been key, but just remembering what happened with last year with Alabama and how they kind of just fell apart. And even though they beat Gonzaga, they win that game by 9. It wasn't even that close. And then they go on to lose to Georgia. It's just a team that I just have trouble trusting right now. It's going to take me a little bit of time for me to really buy in on Alabama.
Okay, here you go. So it would be a numbers guy that says, how does a team like Alabama beat Gonzaga and lose to Georgia? A situational handicapper's answer is going to be, it's clearly a letdown spot.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Letdown or look ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
So true. Our last game is a big one, too. It's North Carolina taking on Ohio State, ACC versus the Big Ten. 84% of the tickets are on North Carolina, causing the line to open at 1.5, now 2.5, and going up to 3.5 at some spots. 85% of the money apparently is on the North Carolina Tar Heels, meaning the Joes and the Pros are together here. Are they doing the right thing, Eric?
I'm going OSU on this one. I know that Isaac Likely is out indefinitely, but this is offense versus offense. Ohio State is number 3 in the country. North Carolina number 12 in offensive efficiency. Both defenses are not particularly great, hovering right around that number 100 mark. Really similar offensive fingerprints to these two teams. Neither team is afraid to penetrate and pull up for the mid-range too. Ohio State is probably going to crash the offensive glass better as a team. It's kind of a 2 versus 1 situation with Zed Key and Justice Suing combining for 6 offensive rebounds a game. Armando Bacot kind of forced to do everything himself for North Carolina. He's averaging 4.9 offensive rebounds a game. That's pretty awesome for him. Tough call here. I think these teams are, like I said, similar in a number of ways. It may come down to turnovers and second chances. If that's the case, I think the Buckeyes protect the ball better. I think they rebound better. I'm going to probably go here, and I might be, like I said, if I heard it correctly, you did say North Carolina by like 3. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. I'd almost be inclined to try the old money line on Ohio State and see if they can pull this one out, because I think, again, of North Carolina last year a little bit. Remember, everybody kind of bought in on North Carolina, what they did in the tournament. There were 2 teams last year that were incredibly inconsistent in college basketball. One was North Carolina, one was Iowa. And for that reason, I refused to take either team to win more than one. So what I ended up picking in the NCAA tournament is I had Iowa losing right away to Richmond, which they did. And then I had North Carolina losing in the second round to Baylor. Out of the blue, North Carolina just put together a big streak, just played their best basketball, but then everybody bought into that. And that's the one thing that so many college basketball fans are guilty of, is recency bias. They actually got the preseason number 1. They've played nowhere near. They've played far more like the team you saw up until early March last year, where people were saying, if you remember, in late February, North Carolina doesn't belong in the tournament. They didn't even have a quad 1 win going into March. North Carolina feels like that same kind of team this year. They don't even have Brady Manick, who was a key element to that team. They replaced it with Pete Nance. Not a bad player, but North Carolina just hasn't been able to bring it all together in this situation. I think a lot of people underestimate Ohio State. Ohio State is repeatedly a team that does well early on in the year, and then they kind of fall apart as the year goes along. I've always had a lot of faith in Ohio State in November and December. I would probably lean on Ohio State on this one.
I'm with you, Eric, and I will admit that in one of my brackets, I probably did like about 8 of them or 10 of them last year. I had Iowa winning the whole thing.
Well, they got hot at the right time. I mean, they made me some nice money in the Big Ten tournament. They made me some nice money. But, as time went along, I said, Fran McCaffrey, snake bitten in March.
Yeah.
You saw that game coming up, and I saw Richmond playing, with Mooney and that offense that they run there at Richmond, which is very complex. It's not something that Iowa would see every day in the Big Ten, and they just fell behind in that game. They didn't particularly play well, and that was kind of the Iowa team that reverted back to its norm. North Carolina never really did. Once the tournament started, I was kind of waiting for North Carolina to have that really bad game. It never even showed up, not even in the championship game that they lost.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that brings us to the end of the college basketball segment, and I know Eric has not better thing. He has other things to do today. But before you go, Eric, I want everybody to know where they can find you. And I will say this: HaslamMetrics.com has a link at the top to donate. He does all this work tirelessly for free. He's been doing it for years. He's an engineer by trade. He's a very smart guy. And at this time of the year, even if you just, donate what you can, $5, $10, 25, it's going to help him big time to keep what he does going, because it's voluminous, to say the least.
Yeah. I appreciate, anything that, I love to do it for free. As I always say, a lot of people would say, well, why wouldn't you monetize? My response is always kind of, a free party is the best party. And, I just like doing this kind of thing. Just having, I guess the limited influence that I do. Like John said, if you want to visit, just hit HaslamMetrics.com. We have ratings, rankings, bracketology, projections, automated game summaries, automated team summaries. Otherwise, most of the time you will find me out on Twitter. My handle out there is HaslamMetrics. So hit me up. That's the thing that we were talking beforehand. One of the things I love doing the most is interacting with fans. We got to have fun with it. One of the things that a lot of people will say about the analytics is it kind of sucks the life out of the game, the fun out of it. That's why I kind of like to do the balance of the two things. I do the analytics, but at the same time, I have a lot of followers out there that we have a lot of fun. We give each other a lot of hell over a lot of different things. The game is supposed to be fun, and that's what we have to sometimes remember. We're not curing cancer here with what we're doing with the analytics. It's still meant to be fun. So if you find me on Twitter, follow me. We'll have a good time.
Oh, I love it.
We're going to see you again next Saturday, Eric.
No, you never know. I don't know about next Saturday, but hit me up. I'll definitely be back at some point.
Yeah,
Sounds
definitely.
good.
If we can get you on, once a week, that would be it'd be really, really good, because then people would learn more about you too. More about the analytics, more winning bets, and because I'm willing to say that of all the games we covered, they probably win more than they lose.
Yeah, and that's what I've always tried to. I never want to be the line. A buddy of mine down in Louisiana always says to me, he says, I like Haslametrics. He said, I'd rather be don't be the line, be the value. And so I'm like, I always like to, hopefully there's some value out there. If I'm winning more often than not, that's the idea you want to go. Of course, as I said, don't always 100% trust the analytics. They are just a guide. Put your eyes on the situation, know the injury situation. Everything is based on past performance. So if everything happens up until now and all of a sudden you have major injuries, keep that in mind. Don't blindly follow the analytics. Use your eyes as well.
Great stuff, Eric. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, guys.
I always this is how I always end my shows, but not over ending. We're going to move over to the NFL, but bet with your head not over it. There's nothing truer, especially in college basketball, when you have 140 different games on one day. You can get carried away, and it's important to remember that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks again, Eric. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you,
guys. Have a good one.
You got it. So there he was, Eric Hassel.
I want to hear Jordan say something. You got anything for us, Jordan?
Well, I told John, and this is why I showed up late. Around these times and maybe later, I am useless when it comes to college basketball. I'll just be honest with you. So many games. Basketball is my least favorite sport, I would say, to bet, just because I feel like, especially when you're attacking point spreads, you know how it is, like fouling and just random.
I said the same thing, Jordan. It's I'm still in football mode. I'm getting my feet wet. I'm almost there. I'm about a week away from being ready for this. I can contribute some stuff, but football is still more my wheelhouse right now.
That's me. The only basketball I'm good at is I know the NBA fairly well. So and I do not recommend this to anybody, but what I'm really good at is just going on and doing same game parlays. I know you're not supposed to do those. They're bad. That's how you lose money. But if you know the players and you know what you're doing, you only got to hit 1 out of every 10 to be profitable. You hit 2 out of 10. It's pretty easy. For me, just you can't be an idiot and be placing plus 5,000, 15 leg parlays. You got to be smart. But yeah, basketball is not my not my expertise, I'll say.
College hoops, I think, is the hardest one to do, and like I said, the more bets you place in college basketball, the greater the chance for loss.
Right. The only one I've been really on this year is fading Louisville. And then I had my Western Kentucky expert, who I call Big Red. He told me that it was the night for Louisville. So I actually did have the Louisville money line the other night, but that's just, you're following around an ACC team. You see that they're absolutely terrible, and then you just know when to hop off the train. So that was good, though. You got to listen to everybody else but me, and then football is where I can maybe do something good for you.
It's always good. So what is not good is Miami Dolphins have to travel, and they probably already are there at Buffalo amid what I understand is to be typical Buffalo weather and lots of wind and snow. And the one thing I do get tired of hearing, and I'm sure you guys agree, is the fact that Tua was born in Hawaii, therefore he doesn't know how to throw a ball in 30-degree weather. I mean, didn't Tom Brady come from Southern California or something when he was in high school? I forget. But he went to Michigan and he did fairly well there. And then he went to New England and did really well. And they played Buffalo twice a year. I don't know if that even has a handicapping side to it, other than the fact that he's 0-3 when the temperature is below 40 degrees. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I am on Buffalo. And I'll tell you why from the analytical standpoint. Is that we're betting on home favorites of at least 6.5 points. That home favorite allows 100 to 115 rushing yards per game. The road team has not gained 100 rushing yards in each of their last 2 games, and the road team averages between 70 and 90 rushing yards per game, which is not that good. And the game is a divisional matchup. Look at these numbers. 10-2 against the spread. Last 10 seasons, going all the way back to 1990, 68% winners. And like that system I had on Thursday, that was 15-0 with the subset. Just because this is 10-2 doesn't mean it's going to be an 11-2. But it stands to reason that if this comes up again and again and again, I'm going to put my money behind it because we're betting the number in this situation. We're not betting the Bills. We're not betting against the Dolphins. This is the setup. It says to take the Bills. I am a little worried, though. I'll admit it. That 7.5 and the hook and all this talk about Tua not being able to throw a ball if there's even a snowflake in the sky just makes me think that, if I'm Tua, well, I'm going to show these guys. I'll make a snowball and throw it at Santa Claus, for goodness sake. I'll show the Philadelphia fans how to do it. What do you think, Jesse?
I love Buffalo here. I got them for the first half. It's obviously a revenge spot. You look at the way that they lost in Miami. They had a 280-plus yard edge in total yards. Somehow found a way to lose. And this is a third straight road game for Miami. A couple games on the West Coast. They look terrible in those games. And coming into Buffalo, as you mentioned, I don't believe in Tua can't play in cold weather, but I believe it's not ideal. It's not ideal at this time for this game in a revenge against this team. So forget about, the Dolphins can't play in cold weather, but there's a lot of other factors, and the weather ain't going to help. So for that reason, I'm all about the Buffalo Bills and revenge here. Hand size and arm strength, I think, are what matters in cold weather.
And, there again, Jesse, 19 reps at 225. You obviously have the hand and arm strength. Just practice throwing in the mountains in Thailand where it's cold.
One of your viewers, Daniel, asked what sport is popular in Thailand, and I'll let him know it's soccer. And I'm watching the World Cup third place game as we speak. It's a entertaining game.
2-1 Croatia.
It's 2-1 for Croatia. Yeah. 2-1 for Croatia as we speak, with 5 minutes left in the game.
For respecting third place.
Oh, I know. I love it.
Let's do it. I also love the Bills. I've got a lot of people. What I've seen is very popular this week is, find a partner and tease it down to a pick 'em. And I just saw a picture of the weather this morning. And this isn't any advanced analysis. I immediately hit the under, man. Like, they scored 40 in the first game. It's absolutely awful out there. You could even tease them both, in my opinion, a pick 'em and under around 50. But Josh Allen threw 60 plus times the last time they played, and it's not going to be that hectic of a game. Also, you look at the teams the Dolphins beat when everybody started saying, oh, they're contenders. Yeah, what? You beat the Steelers, you beat the Bears, you beat the Browns. You're not playing against good teams. And as you mentioned, Jesse, when they've had this step up in competition on this road stretch, they haven't looked very good. Tua had like the highest QBR in the league, and he's looked like a totally different quarterback. So I love the under. The Bills defense will also be healthier than the first time they played. And I think the Bills is the right side as well. But me personally, I'm taking them both just because with how low scoring I do expect it to be, I'm not sure how many the Bills win by, but I'm very comfortable with them winning, and I'm very comfortable with under 50. So both of those, I think, are really good personally.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. The hand size is interesting. And Mark brought that up because hand size isn't all that it's cracked up to be, because Burrow and Mahomes have some of the smallest hands, from here to there, that have been elite quarterbacks in the NFL. But I do think, and I know this for a fact, Tom Brady always threw well in the windy games, and that had to do with spin rate. And obviously, the higher the spin rate, the more it's going to cut through the wind, just like, watching Tiger Woods or a pro golfer hit those knockdown shots into the wind that still go 300 yards, where the amateur balloons the ball and it goes 75 yards. So I think that's a good point that he made, though, with the hand size and hand strength, because that ball becomes a rock. I don't know if anybody's held a football when it's like 20 degrees outside. it feels like you have a piece of concrete. Now to Jesse Schule, who benches 225 pounds 19 times and then he's not even out of breath. It'd be nothing for him to pick up a football in 20-degree weather and throw it.
I hear, Jesse, are you the emergency QB tonight in case they need a Hail Mary to Tyreek? Like they're going to throw you in there to get it 50 yards down the field?
Oh, somebody on Twitter said that I should play fullback for the Patriots, but no, both my knees are shot. I can barely walk. Aside from bench press, I can't do a whole lot of anything.
You're not allowed to touch the long snapper anymore. Remember, in field goal and punts, you can't roll them. It's a personal foul, so you don't have to worry about your knees.
John just really wants to have an NFL player on the show every week. I'm figuring this out.
Yeah, we got to leverage your talents. I think I'd be a pretty damn good agent too.
Although John, he can't give us picks. He can't bet if he's doing that. He's going to turn into Calvin Ridley. So maybe we keep Jesse here.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm just going to keep on chasing Derrick Henry. I want to get up to those Derrick Henry numbers.
My thoughts were pure at heart, though. Until then, it's a shame that the talent goes to waste now because of the loss that we have. Anyway, let's move on to another game in the NFL, and I think I have this banner up here. The good old Eagles. So I bet the Giants last week, premium, and I think it was one of the two that I lost, obviously. It was a horrible, horrible handicap on my part, and it was backed by a very highly profitable system. And again, if that system comes up again and it supports my models, I'm all over it again. But the Eagles showed me last week that you are an absolute fool if you try to fade them. And sure, the Bears are 9.5-point dogs here. They may backdoor this. They may cover the spread. But for this situation, betting on favorites of 3.5 to 9.5 points from week 5 on out, and the dog has played over the total by combined 35 or more points in the last 5 games, that's pretty good. 17-8, 68%. And I think the Eagles defense will shut down the Bears. That defense is one of the best in the league, yet it gets unnoticed because we're all about San Francisco now. San Francisco this, San Francisco that. And, these guys hear the news. And when they're not mentioned in the same company as especially the Dallas Cowboys, who come up on Christmas Eve, what a war that's going to be in Dallas on Christmas Eve with the Eagles and Dallas being the next game. So you do have to look ahead with the Eagles here, but they are playing at such a high level. I don't see how in the world they don't win this game, 42-10. Am I wrong, Jesse Schule?
Probably not, but I'm not going to be betting on the Eagles. I joined you with the Giants last week, and at some point you do expect this team to suffer a letdown, and unfortunately it wasn't last week. Unfortunately for us, but it's going to happen eventually. I don't know if it's going to be this week or when it's going to happen, but this game's just it stinks to me. Stay away from it. I got a bad taste in my mouth after last week, so I don't want to have anything to do with either side here.
Yeah, can you believe that, Jordan? One loss I give him. One single loss, and he's
already hopping off.
He bails on me.
What are you doing, Jesse?
I'm not even sure that we discussed the game beforehand, even though we had the same side. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what is the record? 11-1? Are they 11-1?
12-1.
12-1. So I mean, where's the? I don't know. They don't really need to stress out about him proving anything at this point. I'm not sure.
That's the only thing that scares me. You're right, because the Bears are really the only team, and excuse me, I'm trying to find a current line that I do like, because I wouldn't be picking a side or the total in this game. But the Bears are really the only team in that North that has no shot at all in making the playoffs. Like even the Packers can still pretend. So I know the motivation is gone, but in those games, that's where I wonder about playing spoiler. Plus, I mean, Justin Fields is just going to want to show out considering he's in and out of the lineup. What I like, and I want to get the number for him, you have 2 prolific rushing quarterbacks you've got Jalen Hurts, you've got Justin Fields. Fields has scored a touchdown on the ground in each of his last 5 games. I'm going to look for the exact lines, but if I do anything with that game, I'm probably going to take both quarterbacks to score a touchdown on the ground. I'm going to guess both of those are slight plus money, maybe minus. I'm still taking both. I don't really care because Jalen Hurts does it pretty much every other week. Even in blowouts, he still, for some reason, finds the end zone. And like I said, Justin Fields, each of the last 5 games he's played, he's found the end zone on the ground. Chase Claypool out too. So he's going to be without some weapons. I just think that's how these teams score a lot of the time. And that's what I would play. Because like you said, Jesse, I'd be petrified of just an 11-point game and then the Bears score a random touchdown or something at the end, and then you lose on the spread. And that's where I would go with this one.
Well, I'll tell you, Jesse, a guy that benches 225 19 times and you're scared to lay 9.5. That makes no sense to me.
9.5 is always scary too, John, because it makes me feel like they're telling me, oh, they're going to win by 10. I promise you, they'll win by 10. That's not too many. Yeah, you can get Fields at plus 135. I'm seeing right now Hurts at minus 125. You're getting Fields anytime touchdown score plus money. Get out of here. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I agree with you.
And you're not telling that guy. Justin Fields doesn't care if his team's not in the playoff race. I promise you. You remember how tough that guy is from Ohio State.
Yep.
Playing with broken ribs. Like, I love that. Plus 135.
And it's going to be cold too. And when it's colder, that probably makes the ribs feel better, I would think.
And he's not going to want to throw it as much. He'll want to scamper.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I have a couple other games here we can quickly do before we call it a day. Let's see what this one is.
Ooh.
I did this one on the ESPN Syracuse show, I believe, Jordan, didn't I?
Yes. And Steve, I love that you brought this one up because Steve, one of our hosts, he's like a novice with this. If you listen to our show open, there's a little bit where he goes, the hook, what's the hook? What does that mean? How can I get rid of the hook? And now he's all over these lines, and he's like, is this Jaguars line a sketchy one, Jordan? So
he did say that.
Yeah, so he was excited to hear you talk about this one. And, I kind of agree the Jaguars are an up-and-down team, but give the people what you've got.
Well, here the system is all over the Jaguars. And honestly, on my one set of the portion of the model that I extracted, Trevor Lawrence right now is the best quarterback in the AFC. And I know you can say I'm nuts. You can say I'm absolutely crazy. But over the last 4 games, he ranks number 1 in just pure efficiency and execution. So does that mean that he's due for regression here against the Cowboys defense? That's pretty damn good. I don't know, yes. But the numbers here are saying 30-12, 71% winners, ATS, upset alert. I don't know. I look ahead for Dallas on Christmas Eve. I don't think Dallas is as disciplined a team as the Eagles are for look aheads. What do you think, Jesse? Think that Dallas gets caught here?
Here's what I think. The way I cap games, I want an advantage. I want value, and I got to tick all these boxes. I mean, am I getting a good line? Is it a good spot situationally, historically, head-to-head matchups, run defense versus rushing offense, all these things. And the more I can tick, then I got a game. And you're ticking some boxes for the Jags, but I'm looking at it thinking, well, they're on a roll. The lines come down. I mean, the line should be higher. And because some recency bias here, not a lot of value. If you like the Jags, you probably should still be getting more points. It's you're not really getting a good deal, and therefore it's a walk away for me.
57% of the bets are on the Jags. 78% of the money. Is that alter
late to the party though? Late to the party. You know what I mean?
Yep. There's 27,000 bets already made. Interesting that the line at the circa preseason was Dallas minus 3.5. So they did a pretty good job predicting where we'd be at this time of the year. Jordan, what do you think of this game? Do you think this is a trap that I'm getting into? I'm getting sucked into a team that really isn't good against a team that wants to win a Super Bowl?
I never had I'm still very shook on this game, to be honest. I won't be doing anything with it, but what I will say about it is after watching just how much trouble Dallas had getting motivated for that Houston game, I could totally see a spot where, they don't have the same sense of urgency and it does end up being a close game. I do ultimately think they win it, but I'm staying away from that one entirely. If you wanted me to do something, I would probably take the points with Jacksonville just because of that motivation factor, not playing a good team. But I can't give any advice on this one personally.
All right. One game I'll mention here, and then we'll just go around the horn with the game that you want to talk about most. And if you have a best bet on it, we can do that. But the game that I find almost I don't have the stomach to watch this game, but it does have major ramifications in the NFC. And yes, Jesse and Jordan, I am talking about the New York Giants on the road in D.C. against the Commanders. And that might be the first time I've ever said their mascot correctly. Maybe it should be Commanders, like in Gonzaga, like something like that.
Commanders.
I wish he would have taken my emails seriously when I recommended. I did send him emails. Never heard back. But Tony Finn encouraged me so much to do it, and I did. And the Iron Condor, I think, sounds better than the Commander. And it sounds better than the football team. I mean, an Iron Condor, that's pretty ferocious. It's actually an option strategy we used on Wall Street when I was up on Wall Street back in the good old days.
Oh, that would make a heck of a mascot.
I know. I mean, it sounds ferocious, right? I mean, it sounds like something you would be intimidated, especially if they were winless. Right, Jesse?
Well, I don't think it takes much to sound better than Commanders, to be honest with you. I think you could come up with a lot of names and it would say, sounds better than Commanders.
If you were bench pressing and I was spotting you and I was wearing an Iron Condor Halloween outfit, would that make you worried, concerned, or weaker?
I'd probably be worried regardless of what you were wearing, to be honest.
Okay, moving on. All right, so the Giants. Why in the world is 72% of the betting community on the Giants on the road after the way they played last week against a team they tied and that's coming off the bye? Shouldn't the Commanders be, they're 4.5-point favorites now. I don't get why you would bet the Giants. Can somebody please tell me why these people are throwing their money up in the air?
The bye is a momentum killer. A bye is an advantage when you need to regroup, you need to rest, you got injuries, you need to collect yourself. But when you're riding a 4-game winning streak, everything's clicking. You just made a change at quarterback. And let's face it. I mean, they're not exactly a star-studded team. They were maximizing what they could do with the personnel they had. There was something magical about that run, and then they go into a bye. That's not good. You don't want that. You want to play. You're on a run like that. You want to keep playing.
It's like a rain out in baseball.
I think so.
You won 8 in a row, and all of a sudden you get rained out 2 days in a row, and yeah, I can see that. What do you think, Jordan?
I don't want it. I just think it's going to be a close game personally. I can't watch this game. Like you said, it's going to be one of those classic Sunday night primetime games, which are just known to be low scoring. I would never, ever, ever take the Giants money line here. But to be honest, I might take the 4.5. But I don't really like this one either. I think it will be a close game. And I can't see the Commanders going out and winning that game by a touchdown. Like I've been saying this all year. Everybody's fallen in love with Taylor Heineke. If you look at what he does, he's a classic game manager. he's just a lovable guy because he came out of nowhere. I think when he started in the NFL, he still had like his college degree on his LinkedIn. He's one of those guys. He's a great story. He's not going to lose you a game necessarily. He's not going to go out and win a game by a touchdown. I think it's going to be close, and if I had to do something, I am taking the 4.5 just because I think that's a really big number.
Hey, Jordan, Trent Dilfer is a game manager.
Yeah.
There's a lot of game managers running around with Super Bowl rings.
Oh, there are. To get a Super Bowl, though, you don't have to win a game by more than 7. You've got to win it by just a few.
Don't sell the game managers short. I mean,
I'm not selling them short, but I'm just saying, like, he's not a guy who's going to go out there and just because you're at home against a team that's not as good, he's not going to go blow anybody out. That team's relied on a strong defense.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So
I would never slander the great Trent Dilfer. Never.
For some reason, you made me think of the dichotomy that's going on right now in the NFL between the two quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and Jesse. I think I did say this on the ESPN Syracuse show. I said, you know what?
Oh, no.
Brock was pretty good. You get that? I thought it was hysterical.
One of my producers, this is what officially sold me on the 49ers. It was one of my Orange Nation locks of the week, and I'll give you the second one coming up later. But he said that the 49ers want to Brock and roll all night and Purdy every day. And I thought that was just high-level stuff.
That's mind-blowing. I'm not that smart.
You get the numbers. We'll get the stupid taglines. You guys keep the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that would make a great song, too, I think.
Right? See if somebody else already has that. Got to check the archives.
I will say I was on the other side in that game, John. I did have San Francisco.
He's close to getting muted.
And the reason why was because again,
I had
with
a
the value
15-0 system.
Well, again, with the value, though. I mean, it seemed like the betting public wanted to go against the game manager. Oh, Purdy's just a game manager and blah, blah, blah. But in my mind, Jimmy G's just a game manager. So you're replacing one game manager with another. It really didn't matter. And the line had come down several points. I think it probably should have been 5.5. I was getting it at 3. Sign me up for spots like that all day.
I got nervous too leading up to that game. So I had the 49ers all week. And then as it got closer, you start hearing the narratives. Oh, 12th man in prime time. Oh, Brock Purdy's first legit road start. Pete Carroll, he's great in prime time. And then I thought two things. One, Geno Smith and Tom Brady, when they faced off earlier this season, the Bucs did get the better of the Seahawks, if I remember correctly. Yep. I might not. But like, if Tom Brady can't handle that defense, I don't know why you think Geno Smith's going to do much better. And two, it was a weird line to me because they were both 3 after the 49ers had just blown out the Bucs. But I kind of attributed that to the Seahawks being at home. So because of that, I felt comfortable staying on the 49ers because they're emerging as an unbelievable team. Like, as you guys touched on earlier, some people's Super Bowl favorites now.
My opinion, Jordan, is when people throw these stats at you in these trends, like 11-0 in prime time, think of it as one of 20 angles that you have at your disposal, right? So people might say one or two things and think, okay, well, give me 20 things. Write them all down on a piece of paper. Itemize them from 1 to 20, ticker X. And if you can make 15 to 17 ticks, okay, I like your breakdown. But if you're relying on that 11-0 trend and everything else is 50-50 or not lining up, then that trend might be irrelevant.
I agree, especially the ones that come out on like game day, because that 11-0 Pete Carroll trend, that's the sort of thing that comes out from ESPN on game day. And I'm no sharp myself, but when all the recreational bettors are going and placing their bets 6 hours before the primetime game using those stats they just got from someone on ESPN. So I agree. I think they're kind of throwing bait at you, and I was lucky enough to be on the right side of it. But John, you scared the bejeebers out of me. So there's no shame in being on the Seahawks there.
Well, it's 15-1 now.
No, drats. That means Jesse's off of it now.
Yes, this is no time to fade me off a loss. But look at this from Alex, one of my first followers on the Twitter feed a long time ago. well, not that long ago, about 3 years, but seems like a long time. Bears and Texans. So for people that like teasers out there, this looks like a pretty good opportunity to tease. And then I do parlays with the money line with two dogs. I love doing it in baseball when they're, two dogs at plus 165 to plus 190. And as you said, Jordan, you have to win like 2 out of 10, especially these type of dogs. I don't know if the Texans can beat the Chiefs, but I do think if you tease both these teams, that could be a pretty good bet, because I am nervous about the Eagles getting backdoored, and I'm not worried about them losing. But anyway, I think that's a good
if you can tease up the Texans, I love that too. Like the Chiefs, like Pacheco has been really good for them, but they're still not a team that you trust to consistently run the ball and milk clock. That tease would get it up to like 22.5 on some books, 21.5. So yeah, if you can find someone to tease the Texans with, I think that's unbelievable to get any team, with 21 points, any team.
Yeah, it's unimaginable.
These two teams have some history too. I believe the Texans in Kansas City. I'm thinking back a couple years ago. I think the Texans were up like 21-0 in a playoff game.
Right,
and then,
they were.
And then they were trailing, but They were up 21-0 in the first quarter, and they were trailing by halftime.
Yep, 24-0 hole. Largest comeback in postseason history at the time, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Franchise
in the
history.
AFC, I think, because White's nephew played tight end for the 49ers when they were down 28-3 or 31-3 at halftime against the Giants, and they were at Candlestick, and they came back and won. I think that's the number two. Number one, I think, is has to do with the Colts. Pretty long time ago, they were down like 35-0 at one point and came back and won. And I think that's the biggest comeback. But I'd have to check to make sure that's playoff. I think it was playoffs. They beat Buffalo.
Let's not forget about the Super Bowl with Atlanta and New England. I mean, what was that, 30-3?
I don't want to brag.
28-3, baby.
That's why I'm 18-5 in Super Bowls, Jesse. Believe me,
yeah,
I have a horseshoe.
I don't lose sleep over bets very often, but I didn't sleep for 2 days after that Super Bowl. I really didn't.
Oh, I was on to the next day, man.
Yeah, it was pretty frustrating. It was really frustrating. And the most frustrating part was watching the coach come out and let Matt Ryan drop back and pass the ball. I mean, what are you doing?
I was watching. That was deja vu with the Saints and the Bucks on what night was that? Monday or Thursday night, where the Bucks had done nothing. Wasn't that the Saints? It was 16-3 in the fourth quarter with like 4 minutes to go. The Bucks had done zero. And then Brady goes down the field, and I felt like I was watching that Super Bowl over again.
Yeah, I did have the Bucks on the money line in that game, which they were a huge favorite on the money line too. So that was extremely fortunate for me.
I was on the Bucks on the spread, I believe, and that lost obviously. But actually, I was not on that game. I don't think. No, I was not. You see how I'm in the present, Jordan? I can't waste time, basking in the glory of previous wins.
Always.
But anyway, before I forget, RotoWire's Jim Coventry. I do a show normally at 11:30 a.m. on Saturdays. Because of the Saturday-Sunday schedule, RotoWire has him extra busy. But I wanted to pass on his player props and his DFS stuff you can get later on this afternoon on the site. It's really good. And I wouldn't be publishing these picks that he is highly recommending and that he bets himself if they weren't really good opportunities. And, of course, this is for information to do what you want with it. If you don't like the fact that Gus Edwards over 37.5 rushing yards, you don't have to bet it. Nobody's telling you to bet it. It's just information from some really good professionals that I think is worthy for consideration. So big shout out for Jim. So my best bet is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars or Jaguars, or, depending on, if you're Kevin Costner and on draft day, that movie, I think he says, doesn't he say the Jaguars to that general manager, the Jaguars. something like that. Anyway, it sounded really cool when he did it, not when I did.
That was a hell of a movie.
I love that movie. Absolutely love it, especially when he picks the pocket of the Jacksonville rookie GM and they make a fool out of him. That would never happen in real life, but it'd be pretty cool if it did. Trade away.
I bet it has, and we just don't know, to be honest. I bet it has.
Oh, you're probably right. That's right, because Costner says no one would be of the wiser when he's talking to the Seattle guy and telling him to eat his effing pancakes. Remember that? That was a great scene, too. Anyway, my best bet is Jaguars plus the 4.5 and a little sprinkle on the money line. I just think Dallas is going to be all about the Eagles. I think they're going to get caught with their pants down. Jesse, what's your best bet?
You're going to like this. I'm looking at a bowl game. It doesn't have to be NFL, right? I can give out a bowl game.
You can give out a bowl game. You can give out the toilet bowl if you want. I don't care.
All right. Well, if you had to pick one team that should be excited about going to a bowl game this year.
Right.
UConn. Jim Mora Jr.
There you go, yeah.
UConn Huskies how did they become bowl eligible? They upset a Liberty team that had beaten Arkansas, that had beaten BYU, and they were a 13.5-point dog in that game. They upset Liberty. They're bowl eligible, and they're playing Marshall. And everybody's going to look at this Marshall team and go, oh, Marshall's good. They got a great defense. They beat Notre Dame. But guess what? You know what they did after they beat Notre Dame? They lost 4 of their next 5 games against FBS opponents. They snuck in a win over Gardner-Webb. We don't count that. You want to know how many points Marshall's offense scored in their last 8 games of the season against FBS opponents?
Less than 100.
18 and a half per game. They averaged 18.5 points per game in their last 8 games against FBS opponents. They're a double-digit favorite in this bowl game against UConn. This is the Super Bowl for UConn. This team was not supposed to be here. Cinderella story in a bowl game. They have proven that they can compete with quality opponents. I'll take the 10 points, and I'm definitely sprinkling on the money line.
I love it. I like that play quite a bit. I'm going to be joining you. Look at that guy. I mean, I wish I had broad shoulders that would, fill up the whole screen.
You probably did back in the day, John.
Now he's trying to rub it in about my age, Jordan, and this is where I start crying and pouting and having a hissy fit. But anyway, what is your best bet for the show?
So stay in NFL. It's similar to my rationale taking the 49ers this week. I love the Bengals. I know the public is also on them, 3.5, going in to play the Bucs on the road. However, I just think this is a case of the Bucs with Tom Brady. I think they're a sexier brands to bet. I think they are at home, and people think that's going to make a difference. You can keep betting on the Bucs if you want. They're 3-9-1 against the spread this season. You can keep ignoring the Bengals if you want. They're 10-3 against the spread this season. I think it's also kind of coming to life for the Bengals that they might have a serious chance as a contender. People are starting to talk about them in the Super Bowl discussion. The one thing that would kind of have me nervous with Cincinnati, you got Boyd and Higgins, both with different injuries. Trenton Irwin came in last week and was serviceable. Now, that would be an issue if you were playing the Bucs defense that they thought they had in the beginning of the season. You're not playing that defense. This Bucs defense isn't good. Tom Brady hasn't been able to do anything this season, and the Bengals are going to start playing to try to get on a roll for the playoffs. I think 3.5 is a steal. I don't care if it's on the road. I'm not going to keep trusting the Buccaneers like everybody seems to want to do. I'm not. And I think the public is reflecting that this week. Normally, I jump off of it because of that, but I'm not afraid of it. Give me the Bengals, minus 3.5. I don't see the game being within a touchdown, to be honest. I just don't think the Buccaneers are as good as everybody wants to pretend they are because Tom Brady plays for that team.
I like it quite a bit, and I'm actually looking at the Bengals. I think we mentioned this on the ESPN show that they are the best team in the AFC right now. I actually have them the power ratings just a few tenths higher than the Buffalo Bills, and they're flying under the radar, just like Jordan said. So if you like the Bengals, this would be a great time to get them in the futures market to make it to the AFC Championship game, make it to the Super Bowl, win the AFC Championship, win the Super Bowl. You're gonna get really good value, as Jesse Schule would say. So I can't find it here, but everybody's smart enough to be able to look it up on your own. The Bengals and 49ers making the Super Bowls 25-1. I mean, that's a pretty good combination right there.
I like it.
Bengals and Eagles 16-1. I mean, that's pizza money. That's pizza money time.
It's scary when you got the Chiefs and Bills hanging around, but I like the Bengals. There's no reason, in my opinion, not to believe in them. It's just, can they beat those big boys when it happens?
Yep, I agree. I'm just scrolling through here real quick, but I'll let it up to you guys to go and see what their odds are. But it's got to be pretty juicy. Anyway, I guess that'll conclude our show. We did a lot today. I guess we went through about 7 basketball games with Eric Haslam, so make sure you get over to his site, haslammetrics.com, and if you have the extra $5, $10, don't think that that's not enough. It's every little bit helps. If 10 people do that, that's 100. It keeps that great analytical site running that he does entirely for free for many, many years. So I can't say enough about the guy. I was glad he was on the show. And I was glad you were on the show too, Jesse. Even though I'm a little upset with you right now, but I'll get
We're both glad that Jordan showed up too.
Yeah. I'm always glad for that.
I showed up a little late. Me and John have like a game of spy versus spy going on. So as you guys know, last week, the Syracuse-Georgetown special got to me and I had to give you an IOU one. Then John's power and electricity drops on ESPN radio this week.
It did.
And then I have to come in late this week because just straightforward, I'm not going to give you anything about basketball because I'm not confident in it. I'm very straightforward with what I think I know and what I don't. So I'm glad to be here.
Eric seemed like a good guy to bring in for basketball, though. If you can get him back again, John.
I definitely will. It's got to be like on a Saturday or at night because he is a full-time engineer in addition to being a pro bettor. So, that makes him tough to do shows during the day. But yeah, Jesse, you would have died. I'm in the middle of the ESPN show. We have oil pipeline construction going on, crude oil pipeline going underneath the Delaware River. I live about a 5-iron from the river. I live about a 5-iron from where this hole is going down 175 feet and now has gone under the Delaware River all the way to the next town in New Jersey, which I estimated to be at least a mile. So they drill down 175 feet, hang a left, and then go all the way across under the Delaware River. So they must have hit something yesterday because all of a sudden it was a big surge. I mean, like a surge like I thought like something almost blew up. And, of course, it was on ESPN Syracuse. But then they called me right away. My phone was still working, and we finished the show in style.
That's not bad.
I had to come out for a play. I got, my bell rung. But, that's
the show must go on, though, right?
Yeah.
Right. Hey, before you, the Cornell play-by-play guy, he didn't answer his cell phone. So it happens. That's why it's live. That's why it's fun.
Well, it makes it exciting for you being the executive producer, that's for sure.
Exciting is one word.
Yeah. Can't imagine. Jesse, why don't you take us out of here?
All right. Everybody out there should know, and this applies specifically to bowl season, college football bowls. Bet with your head and not over it, and may all the wins be yours.
Well done. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next